Hello, everybody. Welcome to my quick class. Today is Wednesday, so that means that at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going live on Facebook and YouTube. My name is Brenda Miller. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from New Jersey, and I've been a demonstrator for over 25 years. And I love to share card ideas and tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff, and some chatter on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. So welcome. If you're out there, please say hi. I am going to share today some cards. I'm going to make a card and share some others from the Nature's Print bundle. And I have Nature's Print on my mind because I actually have my bundle class tonight using Nature's Prints. And I'm going to show you a card that actually we made in class last week using the bundle. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about my classes. I do in-person classes, but I also do Zoom classes. Tonight's class is a Zoom class. You had to register for it last month. I do these bundle classes a month in advance because we order the actual bundle. And when you order the bundle from me, you get automatically a kit with 5 cards in it, or 5 projects, and a tutorial, a PDF tutorial, as well as a link to a Zoom class, which then gets recorded so that if you're not on the Zoom, that's fine. You can always go back and check out the Zoom should you have any questions. So I really like these bundle classes because, number one, you get the pieces in your hand and you're doing the stamping and the cutting. A lot of times when I do Zoom classes, I have to limit the stamping because a lot of people who take the classes don't necessarily have what I'm using. And the whole idea is to use a lot of the newer stuff. So with the bundle class, you purchase the bundle, which is a stamp set, and a set of dies or a punch. That's what constitutes the bundle. And you get it for a reduced price, and for free, you get the class. And it automatically puts it in your hands, and you are going right away with your new purchase. So, anyway, look for my bundle classes. Next month's bundle class is going to be something fancy, which is in it's a bundle in the mini catalog, and you can take a look at that. I have information in my email, so I'm happy to send it to you. So just contact me, DM me. But for today, we're working with Nature's Prints, and I'm going to go ahead and switch over and show you some things and make a card. So here we go. So this is the card we're going to make today. And again, as I said, this was done in my Stamp-A-Stack, my in-person class that I hold each month, and it uses several of the elements from the Nature's Prints bundle. It's actually called the Sun Prints bundle, and it's in the main catalog. I'll bring that up in a second, but here's the stamp set that you get. It has several different sentiments, and it has this lovely foliage and some little smush spots and such, so that you can neatly add a mess to your card should you want to. I didn't do that today, but you could. And then the rest of the bundle is dies, and you'll see there are tons of dies. This wreath is a standalone. You just go ahead and cut it out, and it makes a beautiful wreath. And then the other pieces, most of the other pieces, coincide with the different images that are on in the stamp set. So, hi Carol, one of your favorite all-time bundles, especially with the fern embossing folder. Yeah, we're going to show that, and you'll be at class tonight, so you'll get to make a whole bunch of cards with this bundle. So anyway, so this is the actual bundle. It also has a couple of other little pieces that you can add to it. So there's lots that you can do with this bundle. So let's talk about how we made this card. And I have a special little technique, and it involves the aforementioned Fern 3D embossing folder. Carol mentioned it in her little post there. And you can see this is a 3D embossing folder. It's nice and deep, and it has all that great dimension. It's one of those embossing folders that covers every square inch of a piece of paper that you put in there. So it's really nice and adds a lot of great texture, and it's part of the suite, the Sunprint suite. So with that, what I wanted to do also is not just use the embossing folder, but to also do a little stamping beforehand. And this is just a technique that you can do. I don't know what it's called, but it is definitely a technique. And what I'm doing is I'm taking a piece of gray granite paper. Gray granite is one of those colors that I never use. And I learned that I never use it because I have the ink pad, but I don't have a reinker for it somehow, which is kind of funny. And I just want to tell you that it's really important to have the reinkers for your ink pads, because if you do, then they will last forever. Okay. That means that if they get a little bit dry, you can re-ink them again and get, they rejuvenate and you can go on stamping. And also, there's been, well, first of all, with in colors, they come and they go every 2 years. A set of in colors will retire. So if you have in colors from the 2021 to 2023 collection, you're going to want to get those reinkers as soon as possible. They will sell out immediately. Okay, so just so that you know, you want to make sure you get them. And then as far as other inks in our main collection, like gray granite, it's a good idea to have the reinkers, because every couple of years we do a refresh, and sometimes colors get retired and new ones come in, or old in colors come back. And so we've gotten some hints that that we're probably going to see some changes this year. So I know that I put gray granite reinker on my order that's arriving today, but it has not come yet. So anyway, I'm going to use my Smoky Slates ink pad. You try to say that a few times fast. Anyway, because it's close enough for what I'm trying to do here. So see how I wove that in, and we got to talk about inks. And I'm going to use the Fern stamp, which I have to just grab from my desk, which is right behind me. And this is one of the stamps in the set. Love it. And what I'm doing is just taking the gray, so it's really like a tone on tone, and stamping the ferns, which match the ferns that are in the embossing folder. And I'm putting some on here beforehand, because then when I put it in the embossing folder and send it through the embossing machine, like so, I get something that looks like this. Okay, and this just adds a little bit of texture. You can see how textured that folder is anyway, but when you have the stamped image also, it just really makes everything pop, and it just gives it just more of a great background look. Now, I did want to talk about how to use the embossing folders in the machines. One thing that I have always done in my in-person classes is try to minimize the number of plates that we use on a Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, because it can be confusing. And then I realized I was doing my customers a disservice, because nobody ever learned really how and when to use which plates. So I'm going to show you that. When you're embossing with a 3D embossing folder like the Fern one right here, you want to make sure that you're using the platform. Let me put it this way. This is the main platform, and it's labeled number 1. Okay, and then you need a special add-on plate, and this is number 4. The current version of it is a dark gray, a basic gray I'm going to call it, and it's labeled number 4. And when you put this into the machine with your paper in between, it will correctly emboss your folder. One mistake that people often make, number 1, is not knowing that they need this platform. You'll see that this platform is slightly thicker. Can you see that? Than our regular acrylic plate, but it's not as thick as using 2 acrylic plates. So for our regular embossing folder, you use 2 of the acrylic plates. And for the 3D embossing folder, you use 0 acrylic plates and 1 the embossing plate. So this embossing plate is an extra item that needs to be purchased. It's an add-on. It's at $10 and it's totally, I think it's a worthwhile investment to have because embossing folders are just so awesome. So that is how you emboss with a 3D embossing folder. It's platform number 1 and embossing plate number 4. When we get to cutting, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but just remember that for now. Okay, so we have our embossed and stamped background. So I'm just going to take my basic white cardstock and I'm going to fold it. And of course, my scoring bone is on my other desk, but we'll get by without it. And I'm just going to use regular adhesive just to add this to the card front. So on the card front, we have this lovely background. Now you see I did re-ink my pad in between stamping my sample and then making this, so mine does look a little bit darker, and that's the reason. It just was getting low on ink and I hadn't noticed. Okay, so then we're going to use some of the Sunprints DSP. Now the Sunprints DSP has these lovely blue and white designs on one side, and some of the reverse sides have something with gray granite, hence the reason why I used gray granite, and white, and then also some have some of the navy. So it's a night of navy, but it's also, depending upon the piece of paper, you'll see there's some more lighter blues, which is the starry sky. So actually, when I worked with this card and tonight's class, I actually used Night of Navy and Starry Sky interchangeably. But what I want to do is go ahead and glue down this piece to a little border, which is just another strip of gray granite, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere that to the card. Now when I put it on the card, I'm going to use some wet adhesive because what I find is that, and this is a trick I hadn't mentioned before. Sometimes in a class it gets too confusing to say too many things, but that's the beauty of doing a video. I'm going to use some wet adhesive, hopefully. Oh, there we go, on the back. And the reason I do that is when I either use wet adhesive or dimensionals when I'm adding to a card piece that has dimension, so something embossed. I don't always do that, but I highly recommend it because the wet adhesive and the dimensionals are stickier and they will stick better to the different textures. Okay, so that's just a little helpful hint. Okay, so we have that. So let's move on to a little bit of stamping and die cutting. So I took a piece of white, basic white cardstock, and I'm going to stamp, and I'm going to use Night of Navy right now. It looks like I used both. No, I guess they're both Starry Sky. Actually, never mind. I'll use Starry Sky. And you'll see how they're very similar, and especially for this card because the paper itself has both colors in it. Both colors will work. So I'm going to take the stamp that is a, I don't know, a sprig. It's hard to label everything differently. And then we have a flower. I'm going to stamp that on here as well. And I'm going to use a sentiment. And this one is You're on My Mind. I love this. I don't know if you saw in another post, but I love having this sentiment, something a little bit different than just thinking of you, right? It means the same thing, but just some different wording. Okay, so now that we have that inked, I'm going to take my dies, and you'll see that my dies already have a little bit of washi tape. Now, I have, I don't know, dozens of rolls of washi tape from times that we sold it and times that I just collected it because I do love washi tape, but I admit I almost never use it. And given that our machines don't have the magnetic platforms that are working, we've just not been able to master that, especially with the way that some of us use the plates. This is probably the best way to hold the different dies in place, especially when you're cutting something out that is an outline. And I was finding that I needed washi tape right from the very beginning for these dies, just because they would move. And so you can see I'm taking the corresponding dies and just placing them over, and using a little bit of washi tape, I am overlaying the image that I stamped. I do see some people online that actually die cut first and then stamp after, but I'm just not able to do that. I have not mastered that technique. I find it difficult. So I take this over to my die cut machine and cut that out. Now let's talk about die cutting, right? So when you go to die cut, you need your platform, number one, and then you need this second platform. And this second platform sometimes gets lost in the mix. It's number two. And I always keep these together because it raises it just enough. So this one is actually thinner than our acrylic plates, okay? So we have all these different dimensions of platforms. So this is the thin one, that's number two. And you know, these all have directions on them, and you can see what you need to do. So anyway, we have number two, and then we have two acrylic plates for our sandwich. So you should always remember that we need a sandwich. You can see my plates are, oh boy, very well used, but it's good for showing. Otherwise, they're very clear and you cannot see what I'm actually trying to do. So then you put down one plate, you make a sandwich, you put your paper and your dies like that, and then you put the second plate. And these plates are number three. Mine are not numbered. They're I don't know, they just don't have numbers on them for whatever reason. And then you put it through the die cutting machine. So again, when you're cutting, it's platform number one, plate number two, and two plate number threes with the paper and dies in between. Okay. Well, one of the things I didn't mention is when you're using the embossing folder, you want to make sure that you do a sandwich. You want to make sure that your paper and here, let me grab it. Your paper and your embossing folder go in between. And the reason for that is that when it goes through the rollers of the machine, if you do it this way, which sometimes happens, you end up warping the paper. Permanently warping the embossing folder. And I've had that happen several times. It doesn't do anything bad. It's really not a big problem, but I like when they stay nice and flat. So I highly advise that. But anyway, through the magic of television, here we go. These are the pieces cut out. Just make sure you pop out any little pieces that you have in there. There we go. Those are the pieces that are cut. So let's go ahead and finish assembling the card. For this, I'm going to, I don't know, I'm just going to use the wet adhesive again because it's right here. Let's see, I'm going to start with the biggest sprig. And I'm just going to put a little bit, it was working a second, here we go. A little bit at the top. This is why I hate working with wet, because I always get lumps and bubbles and whatever. But it's fine, it dries clear. And I waited a little long, but I like to tuck it in. And because I use the wet adhesive, here we go. Usually it's still wet and I can still tuck. And I did. And so now I'll take the flower. I'm just going to put some up here, because between tucking and the adhesive at the top, it stays nicely. So here we go. So we have our two flowers. And then for the label, I am going to use dimensionals. I'm going to use one on each side. That's plenty, I think. So here we go. All right, so you are on my mind. It's a beautiful card. And then, of course, we need a little bling. I'm all about the bling. And I have our iridescent pearls. They're my new go-to. I use them all the time. I'm going to put a big one up here and two little ones down here using the odd number theory. Oopsie. And there we go. Kind of a visual triangle as well. Okay, so there you go. So that's the card that we made in class last week. Now tonight we're going to be making several different cards. at my bundle class, as I mentioned. I'm just going to share 2 of them with you, and I'll show more on my blog and in different posts. You'll be able to see them. But this one uses that wreath, and this is a tone on tone. So it's a lot of white there, but you can see the texture of the embossing folder and then the texture of the wreath. And then we added some pieces that were just die cut. This is the one we used earlier. We have then the fern also, and this is the Night of Navy bordered ribbon, which is just really pretty, and we're using it on a lot of the cards tonight when we're in the class. So, hi Rita, you just mailed that card today. Awesome, thank you. I'm glad you got to make it. And then another card, I think I might have shared this one, but look how simple this is and how stunningly beautiful. And that's using the DSP. So this is the reverse side of one of the floral pieces, and it has the stripes, and gotta have stripes whenever you can. Hey Stella, I'm glad you like it. And then we have a floral piece going across, and then this is a scallop contours. Yes, scallop contours dies. That were the main catalog. Sorry, drew a blank there. And it's just that one set of leaves and a message. Ooh, and a little bit of ink. Oh, well, I'm going to get that right. Anyway, so those are just 2 more cards, and they're from the bundle class. So I highly encourage you to check out my bundle classes because they're free as long as you order the actual bundle. So you get 5 cards right away. You get to use your stamps and whatever tool that you got with it, and it's just a great time. And it's a Zoom class, so we go to your pace and we all talk about it. So anyway, that's my little commercial about my classes, and I am very glad that you joined me today. Thank you very much. You will see this on my YouTube channel. You can send people to it if you want. And I also have a reel making this card that you'll see. And if you see it, please share it, like it, share it, whatever. I'm trying to get my name out there. So really appreciate it. And we will talk to you next week, 3 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesday. All righty. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.